Hey guys, welcome to Cozy Talks Live in Michigan. So this is where I am at right now. Tom, I am so freaking proud of you. I just saw the video of you walking with your cane with Michelle at therapy. You are a rock star. You are a rock star. I am so glad that you are back up on your feet and walking and using your arm and your leg and your cane. And I am so excited for you, Tom. So congratulations on all of your hard work and not giving up. You've had a long road. So congratulations to you. Hey guys, let's start this off right. First of all, guys, can you guys hear me okay? I did not bring my microphone with me on vacation. So I am using my big Cuban mama voice, and hopefully not disturbing the people around me while I'm doing that. So just give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me okay. It seems like everything else is doing okay as far as the streaming. Let's say hello to people. We got Scott on board with Cold Water, Gatorade Zero in West Virginia. Marty's here with his sugar-free Red Bull. Man, as much of a caffeine freak that I am, I cannot do energy drinks like Red Bull. They would send me through the roof. We got Cindy coming in from hot North Carolina, V8 in her cup. We got Thomas Course with Cheerios in his cup. You need some milk to go in that cup with it. We got Richard coming in from Mission, Texas with Pellegrino, Eric and with water in his cup, a lot of water because we're having a lot of heat waves across the United States. I think we got Jim coming in Ohio. You can hear me okay, great. We've got Susan with her precious boy Marshall, who loves being in touch with my niece, tuning in. Oh, I love Marshall. All right, guys, I'm going to send you a cheers. I've got lavender lemonade because this is what they do in Michigan, and I'm all here for it. Everything here smells like lilacs and lavender, and it is so nice. I wanted to turn, even though I'm like backlit, I wanted you guys to see how gorgeous these hydrangeas are. They're like, as far as the eye can see right now, where I'm at right now, it's just beautiful flowers, gorgeous, gorgeous flowers everywhere. So yeah, we got Rochelle from Las Vegas. I'm doing good. How's everybody out there? She's watching me on the YouTube channel. So guys, I know, of course, when I make an announcement, I announced on my text messaging service, like, hey, it's awesome. I'm on TikTok and Rumble now. And guess which two aren't working? Yeah. So apparently I'm not allowed to stream to TikTok because if I want to stream live to TikTok, 50% of my content has to be about gaming. Like, seriously, really? I'm a 100-something-year-old woman with 4 kids. Do you guys really think I'm going to be doing gaming content? Really, TikTok? Really? Seriously? With all the videos that people put up, it's got to be about gaming. All right. And then I had some trouble with Rumble, but we're going to get that working by next week. Hey, we got my PT sister there, Michelle from Align coming in. We got Glenn saying back from his European vacation, walking on all those cobblestone streets. Do tell, Glenn, where did you go? I'm a little jealous. Emily's in hot Central PA, raspberry green tea, Crystal Light. And Emily, your question is going to be the feature question for tonight because I think it's something I haven't really actually covered, which is kind of interesting because I've done a lot of wound care. All right, I should probably start the show off properly, even though I'm in a very informal location with vacation right now. For those of you watching me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cozy Belloso. I'm a physical therapist, and usually I am in hot, sticky Tampa, Florida, but today I am in cool, beautiful, breezy Michigan, having some vacation time with my family. So I've been a PT now for 23 years, and my passion is working with the limb loss and amputee community. So guys, for those of you who are new to the show, start posting those questions in the comments. I have a few questions that came in today through the texting service, and thank you guys for jumping on board. I know it's not my usual 8:30 p.m. time, but like I said, I'm on vacation. I got a hot date with my hubby later on, so had to move it to a little bit earlier today. All right. Earl says, I'm literally in the lobby of my insurance company trying to find out why they won't cover my PT in California. Oh my word. Just show them my face and say, if you don't give me physical therapy, this woman is going to be really upset. France. Oh, how nice, Glenn. Oh, so jealous. So nice. All right, guys, let's get started with the first question of the night. It's all about what is the difference between a diabetic ulcer and a regular ulcer? And the simple answer to that is there's no difference. Okay. The definition of an ulcer is basically when there is skin breakdown. Sorry, I'm like wearing the wrong shorts for this video today. Is when there is skin breakdown. Okay, so any kind of a skin breakdown is technically considered to be an ulcer. Okay, and we have different stages of ulcers. We have stages 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being the most superficial, meaning the skin has been broken, and stage 4 meaning it's all the way down to the bone and muscle and bone. And you can see muscle and bone, right? So it just describes the depth of the ulcer. Okay. So if a person has a diabetic ulcer, it's basically because they have an ulcer that was caused from complications from their diabetes. So what are characteristics about diabetes that can cause a person to have an ulcer? Okay. If someone's sugar is uncontrolled, right, it's going to lead to changes in the blood vessels, right? They're not going to be as nice and flexible and juicy as they should be, right? Think of spaghetti, okay? If you have cooked spaghetti that's been cooked properly, it's nice and flexible and pliable. That's what your blood vessels should kind of be like, right? If you think of spaghetti that's not cooked, that's kind of what happens when diabetes is not under great control or the progression of the disease, right? And then you couple that with the potential of neuropathy, okay? So if the person has neuropathy, it means they're not going to have the normal sensation. Circulation is compromised in the area, and it can lead to an ulcer. So when you hear about someone saying they have a diabetic ulcer, it means they're a diabetic and their ulcer was caused by complications from diabetes. Now, there are distinctions among ulcers, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Hey there, John. Yes, it has been a minute. I'm glad to see you here. Dean, I thank you. I very much needed a break with my family, and it has been absolutely wonderful. I did not have a show last Wednesday, and I feel kind of bad about it. It was one of those just mom days. I have my first child going to college. I am old enough now to have a child who has graduated high school and going to college. Still processing that, right? Because I still remember the day I found out I was pregnant with this child. Anyways, my beautiful daughter had her orientation for university last Wednesday, and it was a 12-hour day. It was a 12-hour day. And we got home from that 12-hour day, and I still had 2 more hours worth of work to do for like paperwork and all that kind of stuff that you do when you send a kid off to college. So basically I was just dead on the couch on Wednesday night. So that's why you guys didn't see me on Wednesday. And I do apologize for not putting out an announcement. We got Pastor David on board. Gonna miss y'all. Got to run my Bible study. Hey, no, that comes first. Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll see you on the replay, Dave. Pastor Dave. All right. So yeah, guys, that's why you didn't see me last week, but I was determined even just to pop on for a little bit and answer a few questions for today. So getting back to ulcers, the 2 big ulcers that we'll kind of usually see and differentiate are between venous ulcers, okay, and arterial ulcers. So venous ulcers are ulcers of the veins, right? When there's circulatory compromise of the vein versus circulatory compromise of an artery. And these ulcers, they're going to look different. They have different characteristics. So not all ulcers are created the same in that regard. Okay. So usually what you will see is when I was working wound care, I usually saw diabetic venous ulcers, and they're usually venous in nature. So somebody who has diabetes, and if they have an ulcer, chances are it's because they're having issues with the venous system, okay, with their veins. Okay. And then, sorry, I'm looking at my cheat sheet notes here and it's not printed out. Usually I have my cheat sheet notes here. Okay. So in terms of the location, with venous ulcers, you're typically going to see them around the inner side of the ankle. Okay. So it's called the medial malleolus. And I don't have Bob here to demonstrate for me. He's actually partying at home. Lord knows who he's been inviting to my house to go party while we're not there. But anyways, people who have venous ulcers, it's going to be around the inner part of the ankle. Okay. And the arterial ulcers often show up more often around the toes, the feet, the heels, or on the outer ankle, the outer bone of the ankle called the lateral malleolus. Okay. And when you look at a venous ulcer, okay, it's going to be very shallow. It's going to be very irregularly shaped, and it's going to be a wet wound. It's going to be seepy. It's going to have a lot of like gook coming out of it, for lack of a better word. The arterial ulcer, it looks like someone just punched out a hole. It's very well defined, Okay. And it's going to be very dry, very dry. So it's interesting, like when I was learning how to do wound care, this is how we would describe the wounds. We were told to describe, what is the shape of the wound? Where is it obviously, where is it located? Because that tells us a lot about the nature of the wound, right? Is it a problem with the veins? Is it a problem with the arteries? Okay. So the inner ankle, a lot of times venous, and on the inner side of the leg. And then when you see the toes and things like that. But I think probably to me the most distinct thing is the shape of it, right? So arterial wounds, like I said, it looks like someone just took a punch hole and punched a hole in the skin. It's very well defined and it's dry. When you take off the dressing, you're not going to have like a whole bunch of gook on the dressing. Versus a venous ulcer, okay, you will have a lot of gunk on the dressing and it's kind of irregularly shaped. Okay. So those are the two biggest differences there. When it comes to the pain factor, right? A person who has a venous ulcer, it's going to be, uncomfortable, but not terribly painful. Okay. And it might feel better when they elevate their leg because they're bringing all the blood back. It's the opposite for arterial ulcer. Arterial ulcers can be very, very painful, and it actually hurts when they elevate the leg. They feel better when the leg is down. Okay. When you have venous problems, right? Problems with your veins, you're going to see brown discoloration, edema, and thickened skin. So for me, I always kind of tell folks, like when I'm in public and I'm at a coffee shop, which I've been doing a lot this week, and I just see people walking around, I can always spot someone who has venous problems because the lower part of their skin, like down here, it's like that mottled brawny skin looking, and it's a little thickened. Okay. So that's how you can, that's distinguishing that, okay, that they probably have diabetes and that there's also problems and compromise with the veins going on. Hey there, Randy. Good to see you here again. We've got Kevin coming in from Manitoba, Canada. And we got Nichols. Oh, oui, bonjour, Nichols. Good to see you. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Okay. So those are some of the kind of the basic differences between ulcers and things like that. Now, how are some of these ulcers caused? Usually, okay, the majority of the patients I would see, they were diabetic, right? Like we talked about earlier, diabetes will compromise your circulation. It compromises the feeling in your skin, right? A lot of folks may not even know that they have these issues going on until an ulcer appears, right? And that's why when we have someone who is diabetic, we're always educating them on checking every single day. Okay, the bottoms of their feet, in between the toes, okay, checking the heels, make sure that they have proper footwear, because any kind of pressure in these areas is going to cause a pressure ulcer. And I guess that's another category of ulcer that we can talk about in terms of what it's caused by. So there's something called a pressure ulcer, and it's exactly that. It's caused by pressure. Okay, so if a pressure ulcer is left unchecked, right, and it starts to open up, then you're going to see, well, is it affecting the vein or is it affecting the artery, depending on what area it's in. Okay. So these are some of the differences in the ulcers. But at the end of the day, an ulcer is an ulcer is an ulcer. It just means there is a compromise in the skin integrity and the skin has opened up to a certain extent. Yeah? Okay. Hey there, Pam, coming in from Indiana. Hey, Harsh. Thank you guys for joining me early. I know we're doing an early Cozy Talk show today. Like I said earlier, I have a hot date with my very handsome husband. So we are going to get a few questions done here today. All right. Let me look up the next question. I don't have my usual cheat sheets. I have it stored on my computer since I am not in my home today, in my home studio. All right, let's grab another question that came in. Okay, here we go. This one came in from the text message, and it says, I am going through test sockets that have to be remade. I'm a double BK. Is plaster casting versus 3D for sockets? I'd love to hear your opinions and experience. And another is osseointegration for below knee amputees. So first, let's tackle the socket question: plaster casting versus 3D for sockets. Guys, to me, when it comes to that, if I had to pick, everything else being equal, what is my favorite? I love plaster sockets, hand casted plaster sockets. I just do. I'm old school in a lot of things, and I think there's something to be said about human hands making the cast, experienced human hands. Now, the more realistic answer, and the answer that I buy into more, is basically whatever the prosthetist is trained best to do. Okay, whatever the prosthetist is trained best to do. I think the reason why I like plaster sockets is because the prosthetists that I prefer to work with the most, they do hand casted plaster sockets. But I also have some excellent, phenomenal prosthetists that use 3D casting techniques, and the sockets come out beautifully as well. So truly, I really do think it boils down to the skill of the prosthetist and what they are most comfortable doing. Okay. Another reason probably why I like plaster sockets is because it usually means it's a prosthetist that has more years of experience under their belt, because it's an older technique for making a socket, for casting a socket. So, in general, people who have more years of experience are theoretically going to make a better socket in some ways. Not always, but it's just kind of the general rule of thumb kind of thing, right? Hey there, Brian. Guys, I've got lavender lemonade. Everything here in Michigan is lavender flavored, smells like lavender, and it's wonderful. It is so nice. Okay. And cherry flavored, which is also awesome. Anybody here from Michigan, by the way? I know I have viewers that are in Michigan right now. Who are my Michiganders here? Let me hear who you are. Let's see. I know you guys are in here. Okay, so the second part of this question was, another is osseointegration for below knee amputees. I'm personally hesitant, but I know people have had it done and swear by it. What are the risks, short and long term, versus the benefits? A sub question, has anyone done it to find the metal sticking out of your body, getting caught or interfering in the sheets in your bed while getting dressed, other activities in bed? Can you please send me the direct link to the show so I may share? Okay, so when it comes to osseointegration, guys, right now, in the United States, the only osseointegration that is FDA approved, okay, is through Integrum. It's their Oprah implant system, okay, and it is for above the knee amputee. Now, I know that we are seeing more in the United States. We just saw a thumb implant. I think it was at Hopkins. I believe it was at Hopkins. Okay, guys, my apologies to Hopkins if I misquoted. And we are seeing below the knee, and we're even seeing some transhumeral. Those are being done through special regulatory things. One of them is called investigational device exemption and compassionate use device. Okay. But they are not officially FDA approved. Now, globally, is osseointegration being done on a bunch of different levels? Yes, it is. Including on below the knee amputees. Like anything else with osseointegration, I've seen some really great outcomes with below the knee amputation with osseointegration, and I've seen some not so great outcomes. Again, what it all boils down to is, who is the surgeon, and do they have a team surrounding them? Okay. And we've seen both outside the United States and inside the United States, good and bad examples. All right. Good examples to me are when the surgeon, first of all, has had the proper training, okay, that they've really had proper training. And I think it should be proper training from not only the manufacturer who makes the implant, and I know Integrum does a lot of training for the clinicians, excellent training actually for the clinicians who are going into using the Oprah implant device, and they connect people with experienced surgeons to give them that guidance, and also connecting the prosthetist and the physical therapist. Okay, so that is key right there. Number two, making sure they have that team: a physical therapist, occupational therapist, prosthetist, social worker, mental health professional. They all need to be on that surgeon's team, and not, oh yeah, there's a physical therapist I'll connect you with later on. No. They have a physical therapist who has their protocols for weight bearing, and there's an established protocol that they are going to be following, and they have it set and ready to go. Okay. That is concrete for any osseointegration. In terms of pros and cons, okay, so the biggest advantage to have an osseointegration is you don't have to wear a socket. So all the problems associated with wearing a socket, you don't have to deal with it. Okay, in terms of your skin breaking down, in terms of the limb volume management, right? The nightmare of adding socks, taking away socks, having multiple test sockets done, not having multiple test sockets done, right? So you are going to be rid of a socket. And the time it takes you to put on your leg is basically a few seconds of just, and that's it for your osseointegration versus the liner, the socks, the socket, jumping into the socket and getting into the socket, right? So in that regard, it's huge right there. Okay. And then in terms of alignment, and we've had several discussions on the show about this, guys, when you have osseointegration, the ability to get a more natural alignment is better. It really is. Okay, because you don't have to deal with the socket and you can anchor, especially the femur in terms of an above the knee amputation, you can anchor that femur better into the angle it should be going to. Okay, what are the cons? Well, you have to deal with having an open area. Okay, because here, I'll show you the picture. Actually, I have a picture right here on me. Okay, so as you can see, guys, part of this implant is inside of you, inside the bone, and part of it is going to stick out, and it's called the abutment right here. That's what you're seeing right there. It's going to stick out of your skin. Okay. Now with the Oprah system, which is the one you're seeing here, they have a very aesthetically pleasing and tidy way of adhering that skin and making it nice and tight with very minimal or no drainage whatsoever. Okay, other forms of osseointegration, they have a different way of managing that opening, and it looks more like a stoma, okay, where you're going to have some seepage going out throughout the day, okay? So that is probably the biggest obstacle that you have to deal with when you are with an osseointegration. Okay. Obviously, there is a risk associated with infection with osseointegration. Okay. There's always going to be a risk because you're having an opening directly into the body. And we've discussed that on many occasions as well. High impact activities. So right now it is contraindicated to do high impact activities. So what do I mean by that? Running and jumping are the two biggest ones. Okay, so if you are a runner, if you are a daredevil and you like to do a lot of high impact activities, osseointegration is not necessarily going to be something you'll want to consider for now. Okay, so those are the kind of the big things right there to take into account. One of the things I like to tell people is to ask yourself, what is it that you want to be able to do with osseointegration that you cannot do now with a socket? And that's where you need to start. Okay, I've had some of the world's top surgeons on the show talking about osseointegration, and they all say the same thing. You're going to swap one set of problems for another set of problems. So you need to look at your life as an amputee and decide, which set do I want to deal with? Okay. For many people, it has been an absolute lifesaver to have osseointegration done because they were not able to walk using a socket. It was just simply not physically possible for them. So osseointegration was a fantastic option for them. Okay. And yes, they've had to deal with some issues with the skin. The recovery process is another thing to consider. It is about a year long. I usually tell people 9 to 12 months is the recovery between the 2-step procedures. Okay. And the rehab protocol. And that's referring to the Oprah FDA approved system here in the United States. Okay. So again, with my above the knees and guys, now this part is just me talking on my own. I know Integrum sponsors my show, by the way, guys. So for those of you who aren't aware, Integrum are amazing sponsors and supporters of the show. But this comment I'm about to make is just me on my own. Okay. When it comes to osseointegration for above the knee versus below the knee, I'm more cautious about recommending it to below the knee. Okay. I've seen and here's why. When it comes to above the knee amputations, it is incredibly challenging for a prosthetist to get a good fit on that socket. It's very challenging. I've had more than one above the knee amputee tell me that if they could choose between being a single above the knee amputee versus a bilateral below the knee, they would prefer to be in a bilateral below the knee. Okay. There's a lot of challenges associated with being an above the knee amputee. And I think for many reasons, osseointegration can help with a lot of those challenges and improve quality of life. As you can see, Glenn's been on my show, and he'll talk till the day comes home, right? Till the end of days, about how osseointegration changed his life as an above the knee amputee, right? I feel that as below the knee amputees, they are not faced with the same challenges that above the knee amputees are faced with. They have their own set of challenges, and it's not easy being a below the knee amputee, but not easy being an amputee, period, right? But I feel like below the knee amputees have a better chance at being successful with traditional sockets. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. And again, this is just my opinion based on what I've observed, and especially in the past 5 years that we've seen osseointegration come to the United States and explode there. Okay. So I feel like for folks where walking with a socket was not possible for them, it's a no-brainer. They should have a consult to see if they are an osseointegration candidate. And I see that more in the above the knee amputee population than I do see in the below the knee amputee population. And I've had this conversation even with folks from Integrum, where I've had that conversation with them, and they're like, yeah, I mean, and they'll be the first ones. They invented the implant, they invented this procedure, right? But they'll be the first ones to say, A, it's not for everybody, and B, when it comes to the benefits of above the knee versus below the knee, there's definitely more benefits for the above the knee population. And you're seeing it here. So Glenn is an above the knee, Susan is a bilateral above the knee, right? And they were having extensive difficulties. Susan is saying she wasn't going to be able to walk without it. There was no socket that was going to be able to really give her the freedom that she now has as a bilateral above the knee amputee with osseointegration. And she's living proof of that one, especially in Glenn as well. Okay. Ginny is another one who's been on the show, and Mary. Those are other two wonderful examples of incredibly active individuals that simply were not able to function with a socket, no matter what they tried. And they tried for years and years and years, and they were not able to make it work. And osseointegration was huge for them. Huge. Okay. So, and again, guys, I've done so many videos on this, so many videos. So again, this is not a decision to be taken lightly. It is on you to do your homework and your research. And I really hold your feet to the fire on this one. This is not let me give osseointegration a try. No, no, it is an intense procedure, an intense recovery. The benefits can also be equally amazingly intense in a good way. Okay. But it's not necessarily for everyone. So you need to do your homework. You need to talk to the qualified individuals. You need to talk to people who have had osseointegration, people like Glenn, people like Susan, and they will tell you about the good, the bad, and the ugly about it. They'll tell you the truth about what it is to live every day with osseointegration. And that's how you do your homework. Okay. For this one. Let's see. True. So Richard says true, BK 2019. Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where whenever I'm like faced with some of these questions, it runs through my head. If obviously I am not an amputee, right? But I ask myself, if I were an amputee, would I do it? If I were a below the knee amputee, no, I don't think I would. I think I would try as best to use a socket unless I had severe skin problems that did not allow me to use a socket. If I were an above the knee amputee, would I consider it? Yes. Yes. And depending on the length of my femur, depending on what kind of a fit I could get with the socket, I would consider it. Okay. Would I necessarily go through the process? Not saying I would go through the process, but I would consider it. Make sense, guys? Okay. All right, let's get to another question here. Oh, Marty. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. Marty, I was supposed to look up the latest literature on the ketamine infusion for phantom limb pain. I am so sorry. I will save this question for you for next week. My apologies. This is the second week that you sent me this question, and I did not do my homework. Marty, shame on me for this one. Shame on me. I hate it when I forget to look up a question like that. Okay. Here's another one. Okay, so Michael had sent in a question a while back, so just a little bit of background. He has issues with nerve control in the right hip flexor and glutes. Okay, that's what it was. Sorry, I'm reminding myself of what it was that we were talking about with Michael. Okay, so in his amputation, he had some damage in the nerves here in this area, which means he cannot have control over his glutes or his hip flexor, meaning the muscle that does this movement. So in terms of using a prosthesis, there are limitations there. Okay. So a couple of the issues that can happen is obviously if there's no muscle control of the hip, how can the person then control the knee? Okay. And then what should the person do in terms of exercises from that point on? Okay. So this person had nerve conduction studies. So they did official studies to see if there was any kind of nerve impulse running through those nerves. Okay. And it turns out there really wasn't anything detectable. Now, should the person continue to exercise the area? Yes. Yes. Because even if there was just a flicker of a nerve, it's good to just try to exercise the area. And also, when you're doing a lot of these exercises, you're going to be activating that area, even if you're working on other body parts. So continue doing the exercises to the limit of what you can do with that, with whatever contractions are available. In terms of prosthetic use, okay, for this individual, it's really truly going to be what suits his lifestyle best. Okay. Some people might say, you know what, it's not worth using a prosthesis because it will be heavy and cumbersome to try to use a prosthesis. Okay. And it might be easier to use lost strand crutches or axillary crutches to get around through the day. Okay. Someone who is young, and I think Michael's a younger individual, I would actually encourage them to try to use a locked prosthesis. So this would be a prosthesis where the knee is locked in extension. Okay. And working with the prosthetist and the physical therapist to learn how to be able to stand up with this prosthesis and be able to lock it in extension, right? So basically they're using a prosthesis with the knee locked straight, okay? And they would have to learn how to either circumduct the leg, meaning they'd have to do a little side swing, or hiking the hip. So they'd have to lift the hip and hike it to move the leg forward. Now, if that sounds like a lot of work, you're right. It would be a lot of work. In someone who's younger, however, that could be an option for short distances of mobility. Okay. It could be used because it's another leg to lean on, and it also takes some of the stress off of the sound leg. So it could be that person uses the leg at certain points and uses the crutches at other points, depending on what their lifestyle is like and where that can give them better benefits for energy efficiency. Does that make sense, guys? Is there anybody here who's like a part-time prosthetic user that they find that their prosthesis is easier to use in certain situations, and other situations it's easier to use either a wheelchair or crutches? Is there anybody here who's like a part-time prosthetic user? Let me check into my Instagram channel. Okay, Scarlett Skyview. Hey, I just saw your question right there. So Scarlett was asking, can osseointegration be done at time of amputation? And if so, how would you recommend? Yes, it can be done. And we're actually starting to see that a little bit more now that osseointegration is getting more of a foothold in the United States. We're starting to see some folks that they have the osseointegration done at the time of amputation. So when would that potentially be indicated? Again, if it's someone who has, for example, a very high above the knee amputation where the surgeon realizes it's going to be a very, very short femur, which means it's going to be a nightmare to suspend a prosthesis onto that right there could qualify them for becoming an osseointegration candidate at time of amputation. Someone who has very poor skin coverage. So, for example, someone who's had a very traumatic amputation where they had a loss of skin or they have a lot of burns on the skin, and there's not enough skin there, which means they're going to have a lot of skin grafting, which is going to pose a huge problem when it comes to using a prosthesis because that skin's constantly going to be breaking down. So those are the two indications that came to mind for someone who would potentially have an amputation and osseointegration done at the same time. So Susan was someone, she's a perfect example of this. She had both of hers done at the time of amputation. So she had her amputations done, and then also she had the osseointegration done. And Susan, I don't want to get the details wrong. If you would like to share with us the reasoning behind why they did that for you, and if you would like to share that now, great. If not, totally understood because it's private. Emily says, I'm a left BK with a KFO component with knee lock. So far, it's been a challenge to walk because of the prosthesis. KFO is bulky and heavy. Yeah. And again, you're kind of weighing the options, again, for someone who's a younger, more active individual, I would say it's worth learning to use a prosthesis, even with a locked knee, especially if the other leg is good and sound, because it gives them more options, and it takes a little bit of a break. It gives the sound leg a little bit of a break there. Again, everyone is different. Okay, so Earl says, yep, he uses a mixture of chair with crutches. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. All right, guys, looking up another question. All right. Here's one. This person texted me, and guys, I'm going to go ahead and once again, if you have not, sorry, I always have to do this. If you guys have not yet signed up for my texting service, please do so. That's very easy to do. You text COSI Talks, all caps, one word, just like that, to that number, and you will start receiving the text messages for whenever I go live, the links for it as well. And then in turn, you can also text me your questions. I'm using this more as my communication tool. Whoops. Did not mean to do that. That's what I meant to do. Okay. So guys, here we go. Susan says, the short version, I have a condition that was unable to be diagnosed, and I had terrible swelling, poor circulation, major league skin breakdown. I started as a left below the knee, and then a left AK, and then the bilateral AK a year later. Okay, so a lot of it was because she had skin that they knew that if they put a prosthesis on it, it was going to be compromised, that she would not be able to wear a socket because it would compromise the skin because of the circulation and issues going on. Susan's case is truly an amazing case. Dr. Forsberg, and he's been on the show, did her surgeries, and he is just a phenomenal surgeon and human being as well. So again, that was just a beautiful job there. And Susan is phenomenal. If you've never met Susan, she's petite little peanut, and she is just up and down everywhere. Stairs, ramps, conferences, and she has her beautiful sidekick Marshall at her side, keeping her company and keeping her safe. So truly amazing. Okay, so now we have, okay, so this text came in. It says, my walk has always been a bit of a catwalk with a narrow stride. I'm a double BK for the last 12 years, and it's always been noted repeatedly that I have good gait. I've also been very active. Years and 4 surgeries later, starting back into my new prosthesis with a new prosthetist. He's mentioned it a few times. My gait should be wider, but I think the issue was the prosthesis. My old ones were very comfortable. I have a lot of dance experience with ballet, jazz, tap. Okay. I'm curious, what is the opinion on this? Also, being female, I want my prosthetic shape to look nice and as close to natural as possible. What are our options if this turned out to not be the case in the past? Okay, so with regards to a narrow gait pattern, that's not something I see very often. Usually my patients, I joke around and I say, patients are standing like John Wayne, where their legs are far apart, and we have to work on bringing the base of support and bringing the feet closer in together to get a more efficient gait. So it sounds like this young lady, obviously had a lot of dance experience, is very active. So the fact that she has a more narrow base of support, I'm not sure that that's necessarily a problem. Okay. And I would honestly like to see what's going on up the chain. If her, the mechanics of her hips and her knees are doing well, then I would say the narrow base of support is not necessarily a problem. And if she's saying that she had very comfortable prosthetic devices beforehand, and that's how she walked, without seeing her myself, I'd say that's if it's one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of things. So I don't know if perhaps the prosthetist saw something different. I don't know. Usually for me, when it comes to the below the knee amputee, I'm looking to see what their knees are doing. You know, are the knees hyperextending? Are the knees buckling? Are the knees aligned where they need to be? And then going up the chain, what are their hips doing? What's their spine doing? Okay. And again, usually for me, it's the problem of I got to bring their feet in together, not try to encourage them to. The only way I would think of if the person had to be encouraged to put their feet further apart is if they're tripping over their own feet, but that doesn't seem to be the case with this particular individual. As far as cosmetic covers are concerned, I've seen some really beautiful cosmetic covers, and that's kind of what you would be looking for to get the more natural shape of the calf, if that's what you're looking for. And this is something that your prosthetist can help you with. Years and years and years ago, when I first started working as a PT with amputees, everybody had cosmetic covers. I very rarely saw anyone without them. And now it's kind of been flip-flopped. Now I very rarely see someone with cosmetic covers. However, I've seen some amazing, amazing covers in the past. There's one particular clinic in Tampa, they're called West Coast, and they make, I mean, they're amazing with the hands and the digits and the toes. They make them out of that silicone material, and just beautiful artistry that they do, where they put the real foot and the fake foot side by side, and you really have a hard time telling a difference in a photograph. And I've seen, again, some really, I'm trying to think of the, guys, help me out. She was a Paralympic swimmer. She is a Paralympic swimmer. She's Jessica Long. Jessica Long. Jessica Long is a bilateral below the knee amputee. And she has this incredible story. She was born in the Ukraine. She was adopted here in the United States by an American family. She is a congenital amputee, bilateral below the knee amputee. Went on to becoming one of the most decorated Paralympians, I believe, of all time in swimming. She's an incredible human being. And she has really beautiful prosthesis that have cosmetic covers. I've seen her with both. I've seen her wearing prosthetics where you can see the metal, and then ones where it's the color of her skin and there's a shape to the calf, and they look beautiful. So those options are definitely still available. The con is that you have to, I don't know if insurance will cover it, and it can get scratched up easily. So you do have to take care of it and to keep them clean and to keep them in good shape. And it's worth it. Like I said, some of these prosthetists, that they are just kind of artists. Anaplastologist, I think, is the other name. An anaplastologist is somebody that their specialty is in creating these beautiful prosthetic devices, either prosthetic eyes or prosthetic toes or covers and things like that. So there's definitely resources. Let me just write that down. Say that fast 3 times. Okay. All right. All right, guys. I think we had a short list of questions today, and I think, I did want to read this out because this was just a beautiful email. So guys, I've been doing this show now for, holy cow. Hey, Tom. I've been doing this show now for 7.5 years. 7.5 years, guys. Every Wednesday night, almost every Wednesday night. And, you know, I have several platforms that people message me and send me their questions. And I always say, any of you who have ever emailed me a question, you probably remember that I emailed you back, hopefully an answer that helped. But also, I also ask people to keep me posted, right? I always tell people, please keep me posted. I want to know how you're doing, whether it's good or bad. I want to know how you're doing. And I always appreciate when people email me back and let me know how their life is going. Okay. So I had just this beautiful message come in today, and I just want to share it with you guys because it really, it gives me the encouragement that I need sometimes to continue doing what I'm doing. And I think people need to hear this. All right. So this message says, just blessed to have someone who gives all that you give to us here, as everybody's story is their own. But for me, you are one of the many that literally saved my life. I was on my way to self-delete before my amputation. And then I was told my chances to survive the bone infection were slim to none. At the point, the will to fight was not there. And I met Andrew, who is his prosthetist, and he programmed COSI Talks into my phone, along with a team of people around me, did so much who saved me physically and that it wasn't fair for me to give up. And here I am, grateful and blessed, everyone, including you, for what you do. I think the most important message to people is to have everyone around people that 100% trust and believe in to guide them through this journey. And if they can't trust them, then find one that they can. And I was lucky enough to find them right out of the gate. Thanks again. And guys, this is why I do what I do, and this is why your processes do what they do. Other PTs, your surgeons do what they do, and you really do need that team. You really do need that team. So if there's anybody here listening tonight who is in the middle of their struggles, either recovering from amputation, they're facing their amputation, reach out, right? Reach out, get that team around you, and don't give up. Don't give up. Simple as that. All right, guys. I know tonight's show has been short and sweet, but like I mentioned earlier, I have a hot date with a very handsome husband, my husband, of course. So I have to go get myself all prettied up and put some makeup on and put on a pretty dress and go have a night out. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan. And guys, truly, because of you, I get to continue to do this show and live out my vocation. So I can't stop thanking you guys enough for allowing me to do this. All right, guys. So as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. And I hope you're having a beautiful evening like we are having right here in Michigan this evening. I will see you guys next week. Next week, I will still be in Michigan. So we will probably also potentially have another 6 o'clock. Just look out on my social media, guys, and look out on my text messaging. I'll let you know what time, if it'll be 6 p.m. or if it'll be the usual 8:30 p.m. But guys, have a beautiful summer evening, and we will see you all next week. Same bat time. Same bat channel, maybe a different bat time. God bless, guys.